So this video is going to be a little bit controversial, um, by modern standards, of course. Um, in the Old Testament, there was a prophet named Hosea, and his family life was a juxtaposition to God's covenant or marriage to Israel. And Israel uh, went off and had an adulterous affair with Baal, the Canaanite god, thus breaking their covenant with God. And God could have easily broken his covenant, like had all a right to separate himself from Israel. Um, but instead he showed compassion and mercy and all that stuff. You could read the book of Hosea to get more in depth with it. And so he had Hosea, whose family life had a juxtaposition to um, to God's covenant with Israel. His wife had broken their covenant with him, and was having an adulterous relationship, and he um, he was commanded by God to go get his wife back. So he paid off her debts, whatever debt that accumulated from such a activity, took his wife back, took her home. They had 3 kids, so their family wasn't just him and her. They had children, and as you well know, especially if you've done some history and some study, ancient cultures, a lot, for the most part, like maybe 95% of the times, women submitted to their husbands and fulfilled the duties of a wife, as part of the culture, for survival. So for him to be able to do that, to preserve his family, um, obviously he obeyed the commands of God to do so. Um, it's something to consider in modern times. Because you're in MGTOW, say you had a relationship with, you have kids, you were married, you had kids, your wife cheated on you, had an adulterous affair. You could juxtapose to Hosea's life and the command and God's relationship with Israel in that sense. Especially if you're a religious person, even if you're a spiritual person, you could grasp some information from this as well. Where you should consider after you're in MGTOW, you've gotten some tools to cope with life and so forth. You're self-contained. You have the MGTOW mindset. Consider getting back with your wife and your children. And before you try to crucify me, all pun intended, hear me out. Because I raise children professionally through DSS, and I see the trauma and the destruction that these kids go through from separation alone. I'm not talking about the traumas they went through at home where they were neglected and all that stuff. A lot of that stuff don't really matter to them. It's the separation is what crushes these kids as they grow up. And it's not necessarily the abuse or the neglect or the sexual, stuff that they went through, the rapes and stuff they went through. That's usually, it's minor to them compared to the separation from your family members. So if you separate from your family, there's some ramifications that affect your children, and these things have generational effects. So when they have kids, their traumas do affect how they raise their children, either positively or negatively, but there is some effect that goes generations deep. And because ancient time culture, women were more submissive culturally, I can see the Hosea's example works. Here's where it gets difficult as in modern times, because with the advent of the feminist movement that has gone corrupt in many ways after it got momentum. some laws were written that gave women an unbalanced um, set of securities that is highly corruptive, because greed can set in. The love of money is the root of all evil. Of all evil, love of money, that greed. So, so modern women has all these powers legally in relationships, right? So if they divorce you, it benefits them for the most part, because most in modern times, men are the one that mainly goes out there and do the work and stuff, and bring home, usually buy the houses and whatnot. Now, if you and the wife is working, all that stuff is split 50-50. There's, or somewhere along the lines, you still lose stuff, especially if the woman isn't contributing like she's supposed to, from a financial perspective. But you got to think about, also that modern women has this set of independence again, brought on by the feminist movement. They're called woke women and all that, so they don't need a man. They don't, all that stuff. You're in a relationship. You was in a relationship with someone like that, but now you're in MGTOW. You have those coping mechanisms. You have those tools. You're self-sustained. You should be strong enough in all aspects of the 8 healths, all within that healthy range, where you should consider getting back with your wife for the benefit of your children. And if she is willing to submit to you as a leader of the household, it can work, and you will benefit, she will benefit, the children will benefit. If you look at my video, Why Good Men Are Avoiding You, you will understand that submission a little bit better. At least give it a try to really save the home, that thing. A lot of other influencers that talk about these matters always tend to suggest, get back with your husband. If they're talking to women, get back with your husband who you have these kids with, rather than running the streets. Humble yourself and get back with your husband. That's them talking to women. Because a lot of times the women are miserable too. Because they're already old compared to the market, what the market requires. They're old and they have baggage. Who really wants them? I'm not saying they can't, there's not somebody out there who will find them attractive or, build a relationship with it. It is possible. But for the most part, they're old. So, and it's difficult to resync that energy with somebody else. That takes time, especially if these women are mothers now. Their first priority is the children, not really the second husband. So, consider it. Now, say you take a stab at it, and she's unwilling to submit to you as a leader of the house, or she hasn't changed at all, or not really willing to work the relationship through, because she still has that corrupt independence, then you can truly walk away from that relationship altogether and go on and either be by yourself and work on your spirituality and whatnot, or get into another relationship with someone that's a little more compliant to the structure, the family structure that has been successful for thousands upon thousands of years. Because the failures of the family unit has only really occurred in the past 70 years or 50 years. It hasn't really been long. I would say from about little after World War II, 1945, somewhere around there. That's where a lot of the stuff started going downhill. So, if you have any questions, ask it in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I think it helps with something with YouTube. And of course, share the video if you think it's going to benefit somebody. I know this one was a tough subject, especially for a MGTOW mindset. But seriously, MGTOW was just one part of the whole ecosystem of existence, and you know it can be integrated into everything. The mindset can be integrated. The tools are there that can be adapted or for other uses, especially in family, and hopefully it's something that you could think about. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. If it's you're truly on your way, that's fine too. But if you're unsure, you're on the fence, really consider it. Y'all have a good day.